This is a wonderful time to be in Owerri. I'm going to be talking about the paradox of followership. How many persons here have read a book or an article recently about leadership? If you've done that, raise your hands. Leadership. Yes, everybody wants to be a leader. How many persons here have read a book or an article about followership? Not many. I understand. We don't want to be followers. Everybody wants to be leader. The leader is the person that every folklore, every story talks about. When I was growing up, I had always wanted to be a leader. And in my secondary school days, I was deputy senior prefect. From there, I went to university. I was a student union activist and a student leader. I finished my youth service. I was an NYSC award winner. I got into my job at 26. I became a personal assistant to a minister in the Ministry of Works and Housing. And I served 3 other ministers as personal and special assistants. At 35, I became Corps Marshal of the Federal Road Safety Corps, and I thought I had become a leader. At 43, I became a minister, the Minister of Aviation. But when I left the Ministry of Aviation, I became a new kind of leader. I became a thought leader. People followed me on social media. They wanted to listen to what I have to say. They want me to share my experiences. So over 300,000 people with a reach of over 1 million every month visit my page. But a new problem has emerged. I'm gradually moving from being a leader to becoming a follower. And how is that happening? The paradox of followership. Followers are now determining content for leaders. Leaders are now waiting to hear, retweet, share, like. The more retweets and like and shares we get, the more we rank high in the social media analytics. So we find a situation where what is my view is not really what I say. What I say is what the followers want to hear. Therefore, the leader is now becoming the follower. That is the paradox of the new age. And that paradox has always been here with us. The danger of a leader following the followers is a clear and present danger. If we look at the history of the world, one of the key fundamental documents that defined our democracy, that influenced the democracy we live in today, is the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta was a rebellion by English people who wanted to stop the king from absolute authority. And to agree to the quest of this rebellion, he signed the Magna Carta by King John. This is what makes it possible for people not to have illegal imprisonment. This is what makes it possible for people to have swift access to trial. And when you look at the Magna Carta, it has influenced thoughts across ages. So the American Constitution is influenced by the Magna Carta. The fundamental rights that is in our Constitution was influenced by the Magna Carta. So as we sit in this room, confident in the knowledge that nobody will deny us the right to life, liberty, and freedom of association, we are only enjoying the seeds of what followers had done in the past. But followers have not always been forces of good. Followers have also been fickle, have also been moved by emotions. So we read the story in the Bible of Jesus entering Jerusalem. He went and got a colt as he rode into Jerusalem. We saw people lay their clothes on the streets, and they all said, "Prophet Jesus, who comes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna in the highest." And it was called the triumphant entry to Jerusalem. But 1 week after, what did we see? The same crowd was presented with Jesus, known as a prisoner by Pontius Pilate. And what did they shout? "Crucify him! Crucify him!" And I'm sure the disciples of Jesus were wondering what happened between this 1 week. These people shouted, Hosanna to the highest, and today they're shouting, crucify him. Because the mob can always be fought by emotions, can always be led by people who can tweak them to behave the way they want them to behave. But Pontius Pilate failed a major leadership test because he said, by his own account, I found nothing guilty with this man. I find him innocent. But yet, he succumbed to the tyranny of followership. He said, crucify him. And he was crucified. In another instance, the story again from the Bible, we see Moses, who arose as the leader of the Jews in Egypt. The Jews have been in Israel. They have been in bondage. They have suffered greatly. And then Moses led them through the Red Sea. The Red Sea was parted. When they entered and come across to the other side, the Egyptians were drowned. These Egyptians you see today, you shall see them no more. But what happened? A few days in the wilderness, they said, did you bring us here to kill us of hunger? What have you brought us here to do? So they got manna from heaven. They got quail in the evening. They got bitter water turned into sweet water they can drink. But shortly after Moses went up to the mountains, Aaron, the person he left them with, succumbed to the tyranny of followership. He molded a golden calf for the children of Israel. They rejected the God that had given them manna from heaven. They rejected the God that had brought them out of Israel, and decided to mold a golden calf. And when Moses came down, he refused to accept the tyranny of the followership because he knew the vision, that the vision was to take the children of Israel to the promised land. Our eyes have seen the promised land. He knew that this was the land promised them by their forebears, Abraham, a land flowing with milk and honey. But the followers wanted immediate gratification against the long-term goal of going to the promised land. That can be the tyranny of followership. Nearer home in Africa, we meet another man called Nelson Mandela. He had a young family. He had a thriving career, but he decided to join the African National Congress. He decided to fight for the freedom of black people in Africa, and he was arrested. The Rivonia trial became a very major trial. There were 12 people. The lawyers told him, we can find a way to get legal issues to delay this trial. But Mandela said, no, I will use this trial to bring the plight of the black Africans to the rest of the world. He sacrificed his freedom. But during the trial, he said these very famous words that people remember. The words from Nelson Mandela. During my lifetime, I have dedicated myself to the struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if need be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. Those words reverberated around the world. But what did Mandela get for that? 27 years in prison. And he was age 46 when he went into prison. He was sent to Robben Island. He was sent to solitary confinement, back-breaking work. But when he came out of prison, a new radical followership in South Africa wanted him to appropriate the land of the white people, expropriate the land, punish the white people, restore South Africa as a black nation, let the whites be sent away from South Africa. Mandela rejected the tyranny of followership and said, I have cherished the ideal of a free, democratic South Africa. He stood for building the rainbow nation, that diverse nation that Dike talked about, that diversity that is the beauty of South Africa. But what we have today is that social media has changed leadership. We are all now interested in followership. Before the advent of internet, leaders had only one-way channel. They speak on the radio, on the television, but many leaders had led with wrong convictions. If you look at the issue of transatlantic slavery, the transatlantic slavery was accepted by the majority of white English people, white Americans, who believed that the white race was superior to the black race. If you look at the issue of identity politics, that's what many people have used today as politicians to come to power, because that's what the audience wants to hear. So if you look at the Nazis in Germany, they identified the Jews as the cause of the problem of the German people, and a great Holocaust was done against the Jewish people because they were the other person. It was we versus them. That is what leaders used to strengthen their power. Before now, the only options followers had was elections, protest, insurrection. But today with the internet, we now have ability to communicate with the leaders in real time. We now have the ability to send our instant feedback to our leaders. That is why, in a 24-hour news world, in a world today where we are able to have instant feedback, the internet is driving and redefining the meaning of followership. In Nigeria, in the 1990s, Daily Times newspaper was the biggest newspaper in Nigeria. It never sold more than 400,000 copies a day. The feedback mechanism was slow, cumbersome. At that time, we write letters to the editor. After you read a story in the newspaper, you write a letter to the editor, you go to the post office and mail it to Lagos, and then it is published sometimes 2 weeks after the story had originally been published. That was the only feedback that leaders saw, letters to the editor. But today, we publish and receive information at the speed of light. Today, we have people who can spread message to thousands of people, millions of people. This TED Talk will most likely be watched by far more people than the number of people that read Daily Times and Concord and all the newspapers combined. That is the power of the internet. And just to share with you how humongous the numbers are, Cristiano Ronaldo has 459 million followers on Instagram. We have Kylie Jenner with 353 million. We have Barack Obama with 132 million people. Narendra Modi of India with 80 million people. We have Biden with 34 million people. We have Hillary Clinton with 31 million people. These are humongous numbers. These are numbers that have never been seen before in the history of mankind, that one person's view can percolate to all these millions of people in one instant. That is the power that leaders have in their hands. But sadly, social media engagement has gone mainstream. Now, what everybody is doing is that a new tribe of pseudo-intellectuals, a new tribe of influencers have come up on the internet with half-baked ideas, with conspiracy theories, with false narratives, with bad science, and they are pushing these ideas across the world. Now, the problem with those people pushing these ideas is that we now have people like you in the audience who are now followers, who share, who like, who retweet, and who give fuel to the impulse of these people. So we now have a new followership that is encouraging bad science and people that promote narrow agendas, people that cause social unrest. So what we have today is that we're moving in the direction where we are constrained by the power of followers for leaders to speak as they like. Those people who forced Aaron to build the golden calf, those people who shouted Hosanna in the week before and crucify him the week after, are now running on steroids on social media platforms. They are now running on steroids. They are determining content. They are enforcing compliance. They are redefining concepts. We are now content consumers, while a few people are now content creators. I want you to leave this audience in the knowledge that we stand the risk of just being consumers of ideas that we have not considered, of resharing ideas that we have not given thought to, of retweeting false narratives that we have not given any consideration to. My purpose today is to bring to your attention that followership is now an important segment of leadership. A responsible followership is now necessary for us to create a new leadership. The incentive for leadership is now driven by the quantity of followership. A followership that is morally bankrupt, that shares and retweets false science, bad narratives, is now giving motion to leaders that give bad outcomes. Therefore, the goal is now to build a new type of followership, a followership that is enlightened, that will lead to responsible leadership. Again, the paradox is that the leaders are now the followers because they are following the followers. We are all making effort to make sure that our story gets liked by the most number of people. Our ideas get shared by the most number of people. And what is driving it is that the instant feedback, the mechanism of modern social media is now driving our need for that validation. So we have the danger of rational, right-thinking people going extinct because people that purvey bad ideas, bad science, false narratives are now the people that are enjoying vast retweets and share on social media. So my presence in Owerri today is to inspire a move from content consumers who just like, share, retweet, to conscious content creators who pause, ponder, and reflect before they share. Because every human being has the responsibility for an inflexible weighing and examining of other people's opinion before you share. What is more important? The anonymity of the internet does not absolve us from personal responsibility. The fact that nobody knows you does not absolve you from personal responsibility. So my idea today is that those in this room and those beyond this room who are now sharing, liking, tweeting, and forcing the growth of ideas that cause social tension, ideas that create a we versus them, ideas that divide us along our fault lines, those people are being engineered by the followership. So I'm asking us today, let us leave this room conscious of the fact that we can break the tyranny of followership. That is the paradox of new leadership.